Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. My friend Xavier Reyes-Ayral, everyone knows him, was so kind as to come on to my show today to talk about something that everyone is talking about. We're not going to show you any images. We'll talk about some of the things that you already know about. But my dear friend is a native of the great country of France, the first daughter of the Catholic Church, and she has offended God greatly. We in America have offended God greatly. And we want to talk about that, and not only talk about all the things that you heard, but what can we do? What is God saying to us? How can we change? Because this seems like we're getting very close to the end before God's largest chastisements really hit us. So I'm going to try my hardest not to interrupt Xavier, because so many people post in the comments, stop cutting him off. They want to hear you, Xavier. But we will do our good friendship conversations that we can. So let me just start with you. First of all, God bless you. Thank you for being here. But this is a pretty somber conversation. As a Frenchman, the atrocities that happened at the opening games just past Friday, how did they affect you?
Well, it made me feel like millions of other Frenchmen, ashamed to call myself one. And I just couldn't believe what we were watching. I decided to watch till the end so that I know exactly what was happening and what could be said afterwards. It was it was absolutely utterly unspeakable. I spoke, as I mentioned to you, off camera a few moments ago, sometimes thereafter, with two collaborators of Father René Laurentin, who now are very old retired men. One is a French priest, and the other one is a theologian who used to work hand in hand with Father René Laurentin, with Monsignor René Laurentin. And we did discuss everything with great detail. And what we've seen is the uprising of an elite community of social station in Paris, which has clearly sent a message, not just to France, but to the world. No? And the message, when we saw this ghastly, sordid, hooded figure ride on this white horse, leading the hundreds, perhaps the thousands of international athletes, was that the devil, or death, leads the world today. And when this hooded figure, this sordid person, brought the flag of the Olympics before this podium, which was presidented or surpassed by this massive head of this golden bull, it was clearly in reference of the golden calf that we can read about in the Old Testament. The message was clear. Even the light show in the Tour Eiffel, even during the spectacles that were made, in addition to the obscenities that we all witnessed with the mockery of the Last Supper, the light show itself even represented some symbolism of Freemasonry. Even the squares, black and white,
checkered floor.
all these are well-renowned symbols of Freemasonry. It is not subject to interpretation. The message couldn't be clearer. And all this was favored, organized, I could say architected, no pun intended, by an Olympic administrative committee that got its green light from the French government, or rather from Emmanuel Macron. Since as of today, since the last elections, we have no formal French government. The government has quit. The parliamentary has been dissolved. There has been new election, but the new government has not been chosen. So as of right now, we only have the French president, Emmanuel Macron, which is heading whatever is left of the government, and the old ministers that are taking over. All this has been personally approved and sealed by Emmanuel Macron. The message is clear. Christianity has no word, no message, no place in the elite societies, elite levels of France. And today, unquestionably, France is led by a community of Freemasons. This is very grave. Very grave indeed.
You know that, because you follow the French news, you know that Macron is being sued, right? Or not sued, that there are 5 journalists who have done research saying his wife, Brigitte, is actually a man, transgender, because they can't produce any pictures of, anyway, so that's been pretty much put into the news. So if that's true, the reason they're not accommodating that, because people are like, what's the big deal if Brigitte is really the young brother of, anyway, is that if in fact it's true, the wife was would have been pedophile, because it was the wife,
Yes.
Brigitte, is older than, anyway, so that has been something I've been listening to in the news for a while. And then to put this in place, and then as you said, Tom Jolly, the creator, the choreographer, in a French newspaper in June of last year, after he had been tasked with orchestrating this event, he said his words were, he viewed the Olympic that being tasked with a grand pagan ceremony. That's what he said. And so when the IOC tried to say that, oh, it was an accident, that's a lie. And that fake apology that they said, I teach classes on forgiveness and I teach about apologies. And when they said, we're sorry, basically, we're sorry you took offense. If anybody took offense, they never said if we offended. So, I mean, all of that stuff is so angering. Because as you said, Satan is the god of the inverse. And so even in the Last Supper, if you notice the exact positions there, they had inverse arms hanging this way, then that way. The blue man, people referred to the blue man on the plate. Well, what happened at the Last Supper? Eat my body and drink my blood. And so he was putting his
Exactly.
position of eat me, and he spreads his legs. And a lot of people didn't catch, and I was thinking about putting some images, and I thought, no, to heck with Satan. Did you see, in addition to people talking about his testicles hanging out, did you see the man with the fully exposed penis as well?
Yes, I've seen all that. You're the only one, along with Monique T, on a show that we did yesterday. You're the only one who've noticed the analogy of this blue god from Greek mythology that was placing himself on a platter before this banquet. No, as you said, bringing forth even subconsciously the message to "I am a god which you may eat," which is exactly a mockery of the words of our Lord Jesus Christ. This is my flesh, this is my body, this is my blood, unless you eat me. Well, although he didn't say that in that particular instance, but take this, for this is my body, and take this, for this is my blood. It was a mockery of the whole thing. I am forced to wonder, Christine, that if a same sort of mockery would have been made of Islam, would even the French government have considered or to give permission to make a mockery of some of the sins of the Sharia of the Quran? No, I seriously doubt it out of fear of rising protests throughout France and cars being burned. This would never have been tolerated. But France, or rather the Catholic Church, was an easy target because of its peaceful nature. However, in France, there's been a tremendous rise of protest. A lot of Catholic communities throughout France have sent multitudes of letters of disgust to the French government, to the mayor of Paris. The entire Episcopal College of France have risen and have formally protested to Emmanuel Macron and to the Olympic Committee for this outrage, this direct attack against the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church. And but as I said, this entire thing has been orchestrated in a way so as to ridicule and to harm the Catholic Church by breaking its credibility. What rejoices me a great deal was the message that heaven has given with the event of the Sacré-Cœur, because as we speak, it's still completely unexplained. The French authorities do not understand how that was. And the message was there very clear. And by the way, when the Sacré-Cœur, it's good to know, the Sacré-Cœur was built upon the idea and the request of Monseigneur Fournier, who was the Archbishop of Nantes and who was the one who indirectly and informally approved Marie-Julie Jahini.
Oh, I didn't
So
realize that. 'Cause
absolutely,
that was on the end of the French Revolution. It has been doing perpetual adoration for 135 years. I had the year written down here. But beginning in reparation for the French Revolution. And I saw a really good Protestant young man doing a talk about this as well. And he's like, yeah, a church was lit, and man, that's cool. And I'm like, I wanted to call him up and say, dude, that's a Catholic church. And it's not Notre Dame, which is beautiful, right? It is the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That's a Catholic church. It's not St. Matthew's or St. Stephen's or St., it was not only the name after God, but his Sacred Heart. I mean, I just thought God will not be mocked, Galatians 6, 7, and 8. And it was so beautiful that happened and that they can't explain it. So that got me excited to see God instantly. I mean, that was within 24 hours that the blackout happened, right?
it was. No, absolutely. One of the reactions of the colleague of Father Laurentin was, Xavier, I feel tremendous sorrow for all those who are responsible directly and indirectly for this abomination, because they will have to render accounts before God when their time comes. I really feel profound sadness for them. And it is true. I want the American auditors and viewers that are watching your show to know that what you've seen in this sad, pathetic spectacle is a part of France. Yes, it is a reality, but it is not all of France. There is a France that from the countryside watches quietly, silently. And there is a part of France which awaits the time when we will come back again on our feet. We wait for the man of destiny, the man of the hour, who is coming. And I like to think I'm one of those men. No?
I believe you are.
Yes, I like to think so. So this man is awaited. France will come back, but there is a great abscess to be pierced first. And as I said, even as far as even the Catholic Church is concerned, before a resurrection, there's got to be a crucifixion. What shocked me the most, one of the things that shocked me the most, Christine, was the deafening silence of Pope Francis and of Rome, the Vatican. Not one single solitary word to condemn or to protest against this infamy. Not one. It's a disgrace. That silence is deafening. There is no justification.
Do you know what was beautiful, Xavier? Not only the French bishops, but the American bishops finally got off their croziers and came together and condemned this. And we've talked so much about bishops that are silent, and I think this is finally, we're coming to the point. If Cardinal McCarrick in 2018 didn't knock him off the fence, one or two jumped off the fence. We say, people in America, there's a phrase, you got to get off the fence. You're going to jump to the left, to the right. You're going to jump with the sheep or the goats. And so many people were sitting on the fence. So McCarrick knocked a couple people, but so many stayed on the fence. COVID knocked a couple people again. I'm picking sheep or goats. Hachimama. Okay, this is waking up. Then we had the Grammys where they had a satanic show performance, and some people picked left or right. We had the Super Bowl, and do you remember in 2016 they had the opening of the Swiss tunnel? I forgot the name of the tunnel where they had the diabolical in Erie. Do you know which tunnel I'm talking about?
Yes, and also in London. Do you remember the last Olympics, the huge bull that they all were dancing around? Do you remember that in London a few years ago? It was a massive bull that they built, and the people were dancing around it as if it was a god of sorts. It's idolatry, a total and complete idolatry. God was nowhere. The real God was nowhere to be found. It was only Satan, Luciferian sects represented, and paganism in its most glorious aspect. That's all there was. But the good thing of it all is that now everyone's mask has fallen. Now we know who is who. And now we know, especially for those who might have been somewhat skeptic as to what we've been talking about, what you and your channel, what we have promoted all these past few years, that there is truly a spiritual warfare between good and evil in this today's society, geopolitical circles, and even in the scientist community everywhere. The fight is taking place, and it is up to us now to finally open our eyes and to act accordingly.
Let me read to you on Luz de Maria de Bonilla. She's a mystic, and
Yes.
I think a lot of our viewers know who she is. On May 1st of this year, she got a vision, and what she said was, Paris will rise up in revolution and will be without the attraction for which humanity used to come to this country. And I had another one that I was trying to find my notes here, but talking about Paris will burn, Marseille will be engulfed. I believe Father Charles Nectow, who was alive 1698 to 1772, predicted the destruction of Paris to the ground. And he talked about a father will come with his children and there will be no sign of it, and say, once here was a great city. And I'm asking you this, friend of friend, pretending nobody's watching, right? That's the part that breaks my heart for you, because I've been there and it's a beautiful country. How does that part kind of, what does
I
that
grew
mean
up
to you?
there. I
In
studied
Paris?
there since I was in Paris. I'm from Normandy, but I grew up in Paris. I studied there since the age of 8, all the way to until I graduated from college. Paris was my home. I used to live Place de Trocadéro, then in Avenue Foch, in Avenue Paul Doumer. I grew up in Paris. So for me, of course, and since I promoted my book and the message of Marie-Julie Jahin, among others, and La Salette as well, was very clear about Paris being destroyed. And the Apparition Site approved in Normandy, Tilly also approved, mentioned Paris would be destroyed. So it is going to be destroyed. Of course, it breaks my heart. But the Paris that I knew when I was a young boy has nothing to do with the Paris that today stands in France. The Paris of today is a Paris that is no longer consumed with French culture. It's not anymore the French capital of a country that was faithful to its tradition of yesteryears. No? It is now the capital of a nation that wants to forget itself, that wants to embrace everything and anything that is foreign, and particularly everything and anything that is not Christian. They think that atheism, paganism, will leave room for successful, concentrated humanism, which only sees themselves as gods. They find themselves, or they think they are, independent and do not need any form of deity to guide their steps. They are about to find out very soon how wrong they are. I regret to say. Because as I said, all my childhood memories, well, many of my childhood memories are there. But if it needs to be destroyed for the salvation of my country, France, and for the salvation of today's modern society, may God's will be done.
City was that you told me that will be protected and we can go to as a refuge in France, the one that won't be touched. Do you remember? I might be
Yes.
phrasing it improperly. Can you tell us what
No.
that was again?
No, you said it perfectly. Marie-Julie Jahin mentioned that indeed, when the times of chastisement come, there will be many refuges. And in the book, I have a map with all the places that God and the Blessed Virgin Mary and Saint Michael the Archangel pointed out that will be safe. There will be some in the region of Gascony, but mostly and most principally, there will be in the region of Vendée and in the region of central and southern Brittany. Northern Brittany will be hit, according to Marie-Julie Jahin, very hard. But Marie-Julie Jahin was told that the region of Brittany, central Brittany, will be, quote unquote, the safest and most secure refuge, quote unquote, in the universe. from the chastisements that are to come. Although Marie-Julie did mention that there will be refuges throughout the world, and she did not or hardly ever mention the world. No, I spoke again recently, about 2 weeks ago, with the granddaughter of the Marquis de la Franquerie. The Marquis de la Franquerie was Marie-Julie biographer and heaven appointed recorder of her life, of her mysteries, and of the messages she received. He passed away early in the century, and his granddaughter, Isabelle, who is a friend of mine, has taken the torch. She is the keeper of Marie-Julie house today. And she's the one who allowed me to look over 100 and, I think it's a bit more, over 120, somewhere between 120,000 pages, and she doesn't have them all, and 200,000 pages. Christine, some of those papers, when you write, first of all, it's sometimes difficult to decipher because a lot of it is in handwriting. Very few are typewritten. My goodness gracious, sometimes you feel very embarrassed to read those papers because you feel an intruder in a private conversation between the saint who was Marie-Julie and God. The conversation is so intimate. But talking about Paris and the destruction, I've got here in my book, if you like, some of the messages that Marie-Julie received about Paris.
I would love that.
Would you like to?
I would.
It's not particularly jolly, but it will give you an idea what to expect.
I'm sorry, but that made me smile, and I'm looking at the heaviness in your heart, and thank you for making me laugh.
Don't worry. Don't worry. There are so many. Paris will be destroyed by the revolution and burned by an atomic fire. Oh, this is not actually from Marie-Julie. This is from a very famous French mystic called Father Révérend, who Saint Padre Pio used to call the saint of modern times in France. So he also, like Marie-Julie, in 1947, 2 years after the war, mentioned that Paris will be destroyed by a revolution and burnt by an atomic fire from Russians who will flee from Orléans, the regions of Provence, exactly like Marie-Julie stated. Now, what is remarkable about Marie-Julie, among so many things, but it is alarming as well, is that she made prophecies since 1870 until 1941. Remarkably enough, Christine, she has never, ever made a mistake or been wrong in her prophecies, most of which are extremely detailed. Not one single solitary time. Not once. And remember that her apparitions, her experiences took place before, during, and after those of Fatima, and continued all the way till the mid-term of the Second World War, when France was still under German occupation. Here's another one. This was given by the Blessed Virgin Mary on November 16th, 1882. There will be great collapses, especially in the center. In the center in France, it is known, le centre is always a synonym of Paris. All these rich palaces where all the profits of the nations are produced, the Lord will destroy them through a terrible chastisement under the form of the land collapsing and sinking. All these tall buildings that are part of the bread of France will collapse. God will surprise those who work without thinking of him, nor of his might, which give everything on earth. Now that's extraordinary, and I'll explain to you why. It's truly extraordinary. You have to be Parisian to understand this. When was this done? 1842. No, it's impossible. So sorry. 1877. The most extraordinary part of this message is that Marie-Julie there predicted and described a place that did not exist yet. The place with tall buildings where France builds its wealth and creates its bread is called La Défense in France. La Défense is a place where there are a collection of skyscrapers that have been built since the late 1970s, and which is a collection of skyscrapers where is equivalent of your New York Stock Exchange. That's where all the major foreign and French companies invest and put and make money for different companies throughout the world. It's a massive economic center throughout the entire European Union. And it did not exist when Marie-Julie gave this prophecy. She described it to perfection. And she mentioned that because of the French people who will cease to think of God and will concentrate only in their making money, in the having fun, in the present culture and self and egoism, will suffer the destruction of this place through the form of an earthquake that will collapse and destroy completely La Défense. La Défense did not exist in the 19th century yet. There were no tall buildings, and there was nowhere in Paris at the time that had tall buildings that produced the wealth of France. This is exactly La Défense. And by the way, even by the time when I was still working with Father René Laurentin, that is something that I remember with a conversation with him and one of the doctors of La Salpêtrière. Salpêtrière is a neurological hospital that received Lady Di after her accident. And Father Laurentin used to work with them to investigate the electroencephalogram on visioning. So he told me this is incredible, particularly for French theologians who know Paris, who know the geography and the description of what she was talking about. This is another example of extraordinary events and power of description. But Paris will be wiped out. And Marie-Julie Janis, like Father Pell, also mentioned that the destruction will come at night through two bombings, one which will come from withdrawing troops of Orléans, and the other one from the withdrawing troops from the region of Provence, which is southeast of Paris. And it will wipe out Paris. One more thing, the version said to Marie-Julie Janis that from this bombing, this great city of Paris, there will not be 100 survivors. And she began to tear up and to cry before Marie-Julie Janis. Then she said, if you knew, you would weep. Withdraw 12 people from that number and you'll have the number of survivors. 88. 88 people will survive. That's all that will remain of a city that constitutes today about, or that consists of almost 9 million inhabitants.
What keeps coming to mind are not just Sodom and Gomorrah, but Pompeii, cities that were once great that God takes out in an instant. And you know, it's not just France. This time it was Paris, right? I mean, but we've seen all the atrocities America's doing, especially the filth that's coming out of Hollywood. And you know, our own First Lady Jill Biden praised this diabolical ceremony. She's supposed to be Catholic, and said it was geez, I didn't write that down because I thought for sure I'd remember. It was spectacular. It was spectacular, and she went on and on, and so I know that these prophecies are true, and they're going to be true for us as well. But you know, it's amazing too, because what you just said, how they were written, Xavier, before the city even existed. And remember when we read the book of Revelation, even when you and I were children, and you know, you read this mark of the beast and people would use it, you needed it just to eat and buy groceries. And even as a child or teenager, I was like, how would that happen? And then we've had this, you know, this pandemic 4 years ago, and we saw how people lined up to get that thing in their arm, and how you couldn't enter buildings or churches or places unless you had it. Everything that you have been reading, everything that you wrote about in the book of your book called Revelations, everything we have read in the book of Revelation is all starting to make sense. And so that leads us to understand that we have entered that period, because I have said for many years, and now it's like clicking, I said, we're not a Christian nation anymore, and we're not even a post-Christian nation. And then I'd been saying we're an anti-Christian nation, anti-Christian world, and go, oh wait, anti-Christian, anti-Christ. We are in the era of the Antichrist, and I will say he will be making his appearance very soon. And I believe that's in my lifetime.
Oh, yes. I know from other figures that I work with that the Antichrist is due, or these figures were told that the Antichrist will appear shortly after the new Universal Pentecost, the warning, illumination of conscience, as it is known by other people. So he's due to appear. But unquestionably, we're in times that already are showing the beginning of the end. What a lot of people refuse to see in what is going on today in the Middle East, in Ukraine, de facto, Third World War. It is not a war between Ukraine or Russia. It is a war, a proxy between two different massive alliances, NATO, that is feeding continuously, unendingly, weapons and massive capitals to Ukraine against an alliance between Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, and a formal alliance that has just been signed a few weeks ago between Russia and North Korea, another nuclear power, and China. So we are seeing the beginning of something that is spreading, and it's not getting better. It's going to get worse. Yes, there are more information. I hesitate regarding COVID. I want to protect you and your channel, so I will not make any comment on the subject. I think my position, my views are well known there. There are, as you know, I work with different sources, and we know for certain that events will spread. And right now, some of the messages, even that we received from Medjugorje, no, as you remember, mid of last month, Maridia from Medjugorje received a urgent call for people to pray the Holy Rosary, a novena rosary that was to end on June the 24th, and it was accomplished properly. And there were other messages around the world that received the same message, others plural. And at the end, some of these same messages brought a message from the Virgin Mary, calling people to return to God, especially to the sacrament of forgiveness, which is ever so important. It's a tremendous gift of God to adoration. That is what the Blessed Virgin Mary has asked the faithful to do, to go back to the practice of adoration and to go to Mass in a state of holiness.
Right.
Last, I'm losing, forgive me, I'm losing my
No, I
my
can tell
Latin
this
as
has
in
troubled
French.
your heart. I mean, it troubled mine, but I can only imagine how much it troubled your heart too. But God is using you, my friend. You know, God is using you, and you take the hits. You see your motherland is going to go through something difficult, but God has got you out of it so that you can keep speaking the truth like a megaphone, like one of the prophets saying, 40 days and Nineveh will be destroyed, right? I mean, so you're out there trying to wake up your Frenchmen, the Americans. I watched everybody's show for the past 4 days, but watching everybody talking about this. And many of them are like, boycott the Olympics, which I have. And they're like, write letters, make phone calls, which, you know what, I think people should. I just heard recently that they actually, Father Chris Aylar put out the email of the IOC, and apparently they changed it. So they were getting thousands. So it is doing something, but I anticipate nothing's gonna, okay. So yes, we should do something for the people who feel inclined, make the phone calls, write the emails, get your voice out there. I don't tend to think too much of it works anymore. What was his name? Andrew Tate. He's a famous Muslim I think he's got the biggest following on YouTube in the world, I think, or one of them. He's a Muslim, and he went and protested on behalf of the Christians. And he said, why am I the only one out here? So while I think the emails and the phone calls need to happen, boycott it, don't watch it on TV, and they won't make an extra dollar or whatever. But we need to be doing these active things as well to get them to wake up. And I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest one I heard, I had heard about a company, C-Spire, that pulled its advertising.
Yes,
That's great, but I'd never heard of C-Spire. And then recently I heard Samsung though pulled approximately $1 million or $1 billion of advertising out, which that was good. But we need more people to do that. But going back to what you and I said earlier, the sitting on the fence, and I'm watching all of us Catholics in our little Catholic circle, and even Christians, and on the non-mainstream media, right? So we're in YouTube and we're in these places. And then you'd like to think the rest of the world is where we are, right? So though I've boycotted it, and I love the Olympics, I was looking forward to it. Today I went and got my nails done, and as I was getting my nails done, they had it up on the TV screen literally right in front of me. I couldn't not watch it, and I got to watch the American women win the gold medal. But I watched all the gymnastics. But I watched all the people in the audience. They're like, "Yay!" I'm cheering, and all my mind kept thinking was, "You have no idea what happened. Like you don't even know." And maybe they're too busy there that they don't know about the atrocities in the Olympic ceremony. I'll give that to some people. But then I'm like, why? This is the same Olympic committee that told a surfer he couldn't use his surfboard because it had the image of Jesus. And that one young lady was not, no one's allowed to praise Jesus, so she did it in sign language. That's a diabolical organization that's stopping you from praising God. And
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know that we can do anything other than praying fast, unless you're going to pull out millions of dollars or go and storm the gates, right? Go sit there in Paris and put up big signs and protest. Praying, fasting, adoration, almsgiving. What do we do, Xavier? What do we do? What do you think is going to be most?
Well, yesterday I went on Monique's show. What we have now.
By the way, I
It's
love that you guys have that together. Thank you. I'm glad. It's nice to see you guys doing that.
we had a few thousand people live, so our channel is called Au Xavier.
Say
So
that
what we
again.
did,
What? What'd you say?
Au Xavier, that comes from Marie-Julie Jahini.
Oh, cross.
That was or hell to the cross in Latin, and it was one of the stigmata of Marie-Julie Jahini. So at the end of the show, what we did, we were asking ourselves the same question: what do we do? So I addressed everyone and I told everyone, well, look, let's do this. If we all gather, and because the French knights during the war, the 100-year war against the English, or the French crusaders who used to go to Jerusalem in the Middle Ages to liberate the Holy City from Salahuddin, used to have a war cry. The French knights used to, in France fighting the English, used to cry, Montjoie, Saint-Denis, and they used to charge, and it was an invocation to the saints. And in Jerusalem is Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Noel, Noel. So I invited everyone then to say, oh, Xavier, to be our war cry, oh, Xavier, hell to the cross. And next Sunday, to remember with that war cry at Mass, to offer it up, all in union in prayer with everyone who watched the show, and now everyone who watches your show, to remember. And I told our viewers to scream or to shout on your war cry, O Xavier, and to offer the next communion on Sunday in union with everybody who heard this story, this invitation to offer the Eucharist in reparation of the abomination of the French Freemasons, pathetically displayed on Friday this week. And all the comments said, yes, yes, a multitude of hearts. So that's one thing that we are doing. Besides that, of course, I recommend everyone, like you said, to fast, pray the Holy Rosary every day, to go to confession at least once a month, preferably on first Saturdays, and to go to communion in a state of grace. That was the expression I was looking earlier. Always in a state of grace, and to do it from the heart, and without exhibition, to do it with the heart. Understand, and let's not be mistaken. This is a spiritual war. Now we have the proofs. And regarding those people who went and cheered, a lot of people now are boycotting the Olympics. Now, a lot of the captains of the podcast that I work with are also echoing the same invitation to their viewers. So, and no one is that thick as not to understand what happened. Everybody knows. Everybody knows it was not an innocent little ceremony. There was nothing innocent about it. No one is that thick. So let's pray for those who decide to ignore it out of convenience. And as the as the collaborators of Father Laurentin said, let us feel pity for all those who've committed this abomination, thinking that they can mock God, for they will have to render accounts for their misdeeds. This is very grave. They have to go through. But the war is on. Let us not be mistaken. And this war is spiritual, and it falls upon all of us to choose our side now, whether you are for God or not.
In my house, we will serve the Lord. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very good thing to do. I don't want to put you on the spot because you probably know this, but just in case, who is the patron saint of France?
Saint Joan of Arc.
It is Saint
Actually,
Joan of Arc.
Saint Joan of Arc.
You know, I invoke her frequently because she's just like my rock star. I don't want to call her an idol, but she's my favorite saint. And I think we should also invoke her now a lot. Even people in America and Australia and Nigeria, everybody who's watching this, let's all go to Saint Joan of Arc, who fought for her country. Do you have a medal of her right there?
No, but I have a cross. It's also the cross of my family. This is the cross of Saint Joan of Arc, the cross
That
of
is
Lorraine.
wonderful.
I took this cross. It's the cross of my family as well. When I proposed to my wife, I had a copy of it to be made in gold. Instead of I offered her afterwards a ring, but this was how I proposed to her. This is the cross of Saint Joan of Arc.
That is beautiful. I think I'm going to get one because I love Saint Joan. You know, I love that she's a warrior and a female. You know, she's just she will be bombarding God. You know, she will be there, please, for my country, you know, and for the world. It may have been France this time, but you know what? It's every one of our nations has been offending God. And again, I'm hoping this wakes people up. Sheep or goats, man, sheep or goats. Get off the fence because Jesus said the lukewarm he's going to spit out of his mouth. And the lukewarm are the ones that are sitting on the fence. Pick the sheep or pick the goats. Pick the people that are thumbing their nose to God who said, I don't care. And I have to ask you too for prayers for me, all of you, not just of you. I have a hard time praying for my enemies. I'm going to, but my heart needs to be softened. And I get so angry at the people. And maybe they were, you know, lied to or they didn't know what was going on. But my friend, Dr. Barbara Nicolosi, she wrote the movie, the Fatima movie. She's a screenwriter. She also advised the Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson on the Passion of the Christ. She said there's not a single Coke can or a picture on a wall or anything that is not specifically thought through. So every single outfit they wore, including the man who wore the thing so short that his man parts were hanging out, that was all intentional. It was all intentional. And so I need to be able to soften my heart. And I think I hate the devil, but I don't want to hate any of my brothers and sisters because I am a filthy sinner. You know, I know my sins.
You're being a bit hard on yourself.
I know my sins. I do know my sins of you. I only know part of them. When I meet God, I'm going to see the other ones like, oh, I did that too. You know what I mean? But yeah, we have to be Christ-like and
think
pray.
you're being human. I think you're being human. I think
I
you're really
am.
trying to do. I sincerely think you're trying to do your best. Don't crucify yourself either. As for forgiveness, it's not easy. It's not easy. Sometimes it takes time, but it would be a contradiction if you don't, in view of what we pretend to do, what we pretend to say, what we pretend to be. So it takes a tremendous effort. It takes sometimes time, but it is imperative. Not to have forgiveness is a form of spiritual pollution. I don't think you have an evil bone in your body.
I do forgive, but I have such a hard time praying for my enemies. You know, pray for
I
everybody else.
forgive
It's like,
easily.
all right.
I forgive easily. I have difficulty forgetting, but I'm working on that as well. And I know no one is perfect. One fights his own devils as much as one can. And I will, and I do, and I'm trying. Everyone is human. No one is perfect. The page is turned as far as on those particular feelings I have. I'm trying to turn the page and to push it forward. I think that's what the Virgin Mary wants of us, don't you think? As Michael Matt says, and I've tried to invite him on our last conference of June the 27th. He was not able to come, which is a pity. But Michael Matt is the one who initiated the idea of unite the clans. You remember?
Yes, unite the clans.
Unite the clans. And the poor man is himself under very vicious and severe attacks from those from particular parties. even Catholics. I don't always agree with him on everything, but he's brilliant. He's noble. I admire him immensely, and he's willing to, what is the American expression? Let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, yeah.
He's exemplary. I love the man. I never had a chance to speak with him and tell him my thoughts of him face to face or on the telephone. I've always reached my goals. Whatever I decided to do, I will manage to speak with him. But I think his idea is correct. Unite the clans. And division is exactly how one conquers. That was Napoleon who used to say that. United, we form a formidable force. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, which I immensely regret. But already on June the 27th, we did this conference.
Yeah.
We gathered 21 channels. It was historical.
From around the world.
Around the world, Marian circles from both sides of the Atlantic, Canada, England, Scotland, France, Mexico, various countries from South America. It was, I would have given years of life to get Michael Matt to be there. And we had John Henry Weston, who is now has become a personal friend of mine. We're meeting in a conference he's organizing in Kansas. I think it's October 17th and 18th. He was good enough, ever so kind, to invite me. So I will go there as well. I'm gonna go. He's a friend. Kansas. Yes.
Maybe I'll consider some info. Be great.
I have a debt of gratitude towards this man, and he's a sincere friend of mine, and he's a terrific chap. And so we're trying. It's going to take some time before these things come through, but hopefully we will be able to handshakes with all the clans, to unite them all, and hopefully to join the one force against what is coming. What is coming is going to be very harsh. We all know that. We've seen only the top of the iceberg last Friday.
We're just beginning.
Yes, but as I said, the Frenchman of my country, the true France, is observing, arms crossed, quietly, silently, for the one to come to lead France to its glory of yesteryears and the church. And Monique, and I'll finish with this. I tend to be long-winded as always.
That's
but
why
Monique
we're friends, so am I.
But Monique asked me about the future Grand Monarch, Henry V of the Cross.
Just gonna ask you there. Yeah, thank you.
She asked me if the king were ever watching you on any of the podcasts that you've done in any of the languages, no? Because I've done a lot of Spanish and French now. Anyway, what message would have sent to him? And I answered immediately. I said, well, I would steal the motto of my ancestors who were Chouans, fought in the wars of Vendée against the Republicans, which was my soul to God, my life to the king, my heart to the Virgin Mary, my honor to myself. And then I added, I am very proud to be the very first Frenchman to give allegiance publicly to Henry, King of France, King Henry of the Cross. And I don't know if he's going to watch your show. Very likely he is, probably, as we speak. And so voila. And we are all waiting for him and for his coming.
So just real
That's
quick
France.
before we hang up, for the people who are maybe seeing this for the first time, they might be like, what are you talking about? So can you say, because he is supposed to be rising again after everything happens, he's the young child that was hidden away and his heritage.
Yes.
Can you explain that? Because I know it, but I'm not articulate about it.
Oh, rubbish. You're very articulate.
Well, but like names and things. I'm like, remember, he's been hidden away and his heritage is going to be the one that's going to rise up.
Actually, the prophecy of the great monarch comes from three major prophecies, the apparition sites, and from a prophetic statement made by Saint Padre Pio. The three apparition sites which make prophecies of the grand monarch are approved apparition site of La Salette, the approved apparition site of Tilly, Normandy, and the informally approved apparition site by Monsignor Fournier of La Frodère of Marie-Julie Jahini. The latter, unquestionably, is the one who's given immense quantity of details about this man. We know that he will be a direct descendant of the House of Bourbon, Capicien, directly from Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI. He will be direct descendant, obviously, of King Saint Louis, and even a greater saint than King Louis IX, who happened to be Saint Louis, King Saint Louis. This man was born in France. This man is alive today. And this man is living abroad. So we know that he will be called at the appointed time when a privileged soul from Vendée will be asked to go and seek him abroad, to take him to France and in the worst situation of its history, to reject invaders, and to restitute the Roman Catholic Church in its glory of yesteryears by appointing or placing on the seat of St. Peter, quote unquote, an angelic pope. This prophecy of the Grand Monarch comes from La Salette, which has been formally approved by the local Archbishop of Grenoble in 1851, and by the Dicasterium of the Doctrine of the Faith, by the Apparition of Tilly, likewise approved by the local Archbishop in the town of Tilly, and by the Dicasterium of the Doctrine of the Faith, and La Fraudet by Marie-Julie Chahini, who, through a letter written on June the 6th, 1876, by Monsignor Fournier, the same one who had the idea of the construction of the Basilica of Montmartre of the Sacré-Cœur in 1870, Basilica, which, by the way, was finished in 1914, also declared and brought forth a multitude of details about this man, the Henry V of the Cross, as named by the Blessed Virgin Mary and by Saint Michael the Archangel, to the French stigmatist. Extraordinary.
So that is a good way to end it, because in the beginning we were talking about how the prophecies of Paris will be burned and will be, you're burnt to the ground. But what a beautiful thing to think that then God's going to rise up in the first daughter of the church, this king again. And as you said, who's going to install the new pope. That is a really refreshing place to end this conversation. God is still on the move. He wants us to wake up. So you do your part, I do my part. And everybody watching, you need to do your part. Praying, fasting, almsgiving, write those letters if you need to, email, go picket. But do not, and like Xavier said, be in a state of grace. Go to communion, go to confession. We're all hoping we're part of the remnant. So we're going to be needed to go and spread the gospel when the Antichrist makes his appearance. So I hope I'm here for that. Not that I want to be here for some ugliness, but I would love to be a Joan of Arc in that time. That would be me.
No doubt. And I'll finish as well by echoing one last message that we received, Lele from heaven, which is this: do not fall under the temptation of falling subject to fear or anguish for the events that will come at, especially starting the end of this year and next, will be astonishing and grave. Do not fear, do not lose your head, for those emotions, anguish and fear, are results of the inspiration of Satan. For one means, it is a path to make one lose his or her faith. Abandon yourself at the feet of the cross, and always find refuge, first and foremost, in the holy sacraments of the Catholic Church, the dogma, the catechism, the Gospels, Evangile in French, and the holy sacraments of confession monthly, and receiving the Holy Eucharist every Sunday, if you can, every day, in a state of grace. That's refuge. And keep an eye on Christine, for as the events will develop, she will report all the next events that will come from other seers around the world, and God will not abandon his own. He will recognize his own. Thank you, Christine, for your kind invitation, and thank you to everyone who follow you religiously. No pun intended.
Yeah, I'll take the pun. Oh my goodness. Well, God bless you. And all of you, please subscribe to breakfastwithbacon.com. Follow me on this channel. And I want you to sign up for my newsletter, because as Xavier just said, we've got to protect each other. He has a show with Monique Turnbull on, and what is it called? Au Crux?
Au Crux Ave Media. With that.
And then so I'm going to go ahead and put a link here so you can subscribe to that show as well, because we don't know when we will be silenced. So that's one of the proactive ways you can do. Share this show. Xavier is, to the best of my knowledge, the only Frenchman around here that's, giving this perspective of what happened in his, holy motherland. this country is not alone, and we're around the world. We are united not by our ethnicity, but by our blood of Christ. We are siblings of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and we need to stand together. And so, again, thank you, Xavier, and thank you all of you for watching. I think that's all I need to say, right? Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all, Facebook. All right, Xavier, I don't even have to tell you how to say it. All of you know he knows. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I'd like to remind you always to live your life
On the sunny side up.
It's so cute the way you say it.